Hello, this is your host, Austin Hopkins, and welcome to the Introvert Leader Podcast. Welcome to episode 37. I'm excited to have you guys here today. We're going to be chatting about insecure people at work, breaking it all down, giving you some strategies. But before we talk about that, I want to give you a quick update on the things I've been into recently. So music, I've been listening to my boy, Bill Withers, classic artist from the 70s. I guarantee you've heard some of his music. Lean on Me, Ain't No Sunshine, Just the Two of Us, just to name a few of his hits. And the song I've been listening to most recently is Grandma's Hands. So this song was actually sampled in the song No Diggity by Blackstreet in the 90s. So if you know that song, I guarantee you're going to love Bill Withers. Just in general, he's got a vibe. He's funky. He's soulful. Puts me in a good mood when I listen to it. Highly recommend going and checking out Bill Withers. If you haven't heard any of his music, check out Grandma's Hands, Ain't No Sunshine. Those are my two go-tos. Okay, moving on. YouTube content. I love to watch and learn anything about fitness, diet related, because I'm on my own health journey, right? I want to make sure I'm healthy. I live as long as I can. And so I came across this channel called Renaissance Periodization. And this bald guy is a doctor, and he is a expert on all things nutrition, working out. He's absolutely hilarious. It's fact-based nutrition and fitness content that's easy to digest, that's enjoyable, and highly recommend it. So if you haven't checked out his stuff, I think you'd enjoy it. You'd learn a lot. I know I have. Okay, moving on. I went back and watched one of my favorite movies. This is like a classic Hopkins movie. The movie is called My Cousin Vinny. It's on Hulu right now for free. Joe Pesci, Marissa Tomei, Ralph Macchio. It's a courtroom comedy and drama. The acting is fantastic. I absolutely love the set pieces, where it takes place, all that jazz. Classic 90s. You have to watch it. We have watched this as a family. I can't even count how many times. Had my wife watch it. She liked it as well. But just watched that a couple days ago. Had to share. One of my go-to favorites. Always gives me a laugh. And it keeps you entertained. Okay, what I want to do now is transition into a listener Q&A. Okay, so the question today is, should I apply for a role if I don't meet all the job requirements? So good question, and it's a yes, and at the same time, maybe no. So before I'll answer, I kind of want to share that I have created numerous job descriptions, and I've hired hundreds of teammates during my career. So I'm going to give you my perspective. It may be different depending on the person, but this is just from my lens. So the short answer is, should I apply if I don't meet all the job requirements? And the answer is absolutely. Can't hurt yourself by applying, but you can hurt yourself by not applying altogether, right? You don't want to just disqualify yourself before you've even given yourself a shot. Job descriptions are an ideal wish list. Having written them myself, I can tell you that I never expected a candidate to hit every single requirement. So let's say, for example, there is a role that you want to apply to that requires 3 to 5 years of sales experience, but you only have 2 years of experience. In that case, I would absolutely apply, because ultimately your ability to learn and grow is far more important than what you have already known or what you've already done. So my rule of thumb is, when in doubt, apply if you meet at least 75% of the requirements. Also, if you've already achieved and learned everything required for a role that you're thinking about applying to, I'm going to tell you that you're overqualified and you're probably going to get bored pretty quickly. So definitely apply if you don't meet all the job requirements. Use your judgment though, right? If you're a entry-level accountant, you're probably not going to apply for the chief financial officer role at a company, right? You're probably not qualified. It's probably too big of a gap. But if you've been in a role similar to the CFO role, hey, why not? Throw your hat in the ring and see what happens. So good question. Be confident. Apply anyways. It's not going to hurt you. If anything, it's only going to help you. Okay, I want to jump into the topic today, which is insecure people at work. And why I think it's an important topic is insecurity is rampant in corporate America. So many people are going through their careers with insecurity. I've had, obviously personally, plenty of insecure moments that I've worked through. And I've worked with so many insecure people, it's just too many to count, right? And basically what I want to do during this episode is I want to talk about how to spot insecure people, what to do if you're feeling insecure, and how you can help those around you who are dealing with insecurity. And I'll start by saying insecurity you may think is not a big deal. It is though, and that can actually cause some really big issues. And in fact, the higher you move up in a company, right, the more leadership responsibilities you have, the more impact you have, the more it's important that you're not insecure, because your insecurity can wreak havoc on your team. So to kick things off, I think it's probably good to set up like, why do some people have insecurity? What's the root cause? And I was doing a lot of thinking about who are the people that I've worked with that have had insecurity. And I think there's some themes, right? And, I don't think most people just wake up one day and start feeling insecure. Usually something happened in the past that caused their insecurity. You can almost always trace a line back to something negative that happened in the past. And here are the most common root causes of insecurity that I've seen in my career. So I'm going to go through them quickly. Lack of confidence in skills or abilities, fear of failure, imposter syndrome, comparing yourself with others, lack of recognition and appreciation, a negative work environment, and past negative experiences. Think like childhood or past job trauma, right? So those are some of the root causes that I've seen of insecurity. What I want to do is transition a little bit, and I want to give you a couple of strategies that you can use to spot insecure people. So why is it important to spot insecure people? Number one, it's important because it will allow you to keep your guard up so that you don't get hurt by those insecure people. It will also allow you to potentially help people that are insecure. And so we'll get more into that in a second. But I used to not be able to identify insecure people, and something changed, I guess I would say, once I started to see the same patterns from folks like this. So here are the easiest 5 ways to spot insecure people. So number 1, insecure people are always competing with others. They feel the need to compete with everyone around them. They need people to know they're valuable, and they think the best way to show that value is to compete with folks. And I've seen people create these imaginary competitions about stupid, weird things just in the name of competing. And a lot of times you won't even know you're competing with them. They won't make that obvious, but they're competing with you. And if you see someone unnecessarily competing with you when it doesn't make any sense, that could probably be a sign that this person is insecure. So log that away. If you see somebody competing and it doesn't make sense, they might be insecure. Another one, and this one's all too common, which is insecure people like to put others down and gossip. So they like to do this because it makes them feel better about themselves, right? You've seen this before. Maybe you had a bully in high school or in middle school or whatever growing up, and you notice this person was always putting others down, making fun of them, bullying. It's usually because there was something going on at home, something that was causing them to feel this way. So maybe you've seen that coworker that's always talking shit about people, making fun of people, putting others down, sometimes to their face, sometimes behind their back. This is most often an indicator of a person that's insecure, right? If you're confident in who you are and your value, you simply don't feel the need to put others down, right? And that's just a universal truth I think we can all agree on. And speaking of value, I think another way to spot insecure people is they like to diminish the value of the people around them. So not only do they like to put others down, but insecure folks need to feel big. And a way to do that is to make the people around them feel small. So they're going to diminish your value, your accomplishments. They're going to talk you down. They're going to make you feel less confident about who you are. They're going to make you feel small. And in fact, if you have someone who's very confident in themselves and who is secure in who they are, they're going to make you feel better when they're around you, because they're going to be freely giving recognition and praise and talking you up because they see your value, and that doesn't come at the cost of their value. I think another really common way to spot insecure people is passive aggressiveness, right? So insecure folks can be masters at being passive aggressive. Think backhanded compliments, negative body language, subtle sabotage, silent treatment, aka childish behavior. So if you're seeing someone who is passive aggressive, it could be they're dealing with some insecurity, and that's a way that they are coping. And then I think the last one that is all too common with insecure people is they like to talk a big game with no substance to back it up. So they like to brag. They love to talk about it versus be about it. Anytime I met someone who loved to brag, who talked a big game, my insecure radar started pinging, right? Again, people who know their value don't need to talk about it. Their value is just known, or the people around them do the talking for them. So their results and their actions do all the talking. They don't need to do the talking themselves. So again, if you're seeing people that are always competing with others, people that are putting down others and gossiping, diminishing your value, being passive aggressive, talking a big game with no substance, that could be a really good indicator that you're dealing with an insecure person. So we talked a little bit about how to spot insecure people. What I want to do now is transition and talk a little bit about how you can actually work with insecure people. Because at the end of the day, you can't totally avoid insecure people altogether. Every company, every team has insecure people on it. Some are easy to spot, some are not easy to spot, but I want to share with you how to work with insecure people. And before we do that, first, there are kind of two different types of insecure people that I've run into in my career. So I want to describe them both and the difference between them. So type A, they're insecure, but they have good intentions, right? They're kind people, they care about others, but maybe something bad happened in their past and that just makes them insecure. So they're not a bad person. They're there to be kind to others, to uplift each other, but they're insecure and that can cause problems. Type B, they're insecure, but they have bad intentions. In my opinion, they cannot be helped. They put others down, AKA, at the end of the day, they do more harm than good. Not only are they insecure, but they are actively trying to make the lives of the people around them harder. Okay, so those are the two types of insecure people that I've worked with. So a couple of different ways you can work with insecure people. Number one, again, I think you got to spot them and spot them early. The best strategy when working with insecure people is to spot them as early as possible. That way you can limit their unintentional harm if they're type A or their intentional harm if they're type B. And remember, those easy ways to spot that I shared, when you see someone have one or more of those behaviors, store this in your brain. That doesn't mean you have to avoid them yet, but it does mean you need to have your guard up. So let's say you're working with an insecure person and they're a type A, right? They're a good person. They just have had some issues in the past. They don't mean harm, but sometimes they cause it unintentionally. So I think it's our job as a human being to help the people around us. And not everyone can be helped, but I think we owe it to people to at least try to help. So here are 4 strategies that I've used in the past that can help insecure people get past that and show up to work the right way. And remember, if you try to help them and you try one of these things, a couple of these things, and they don't respond or they go in the wrong direction even more so, then you may have to avoid them. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But the first one is, if you're working with someone who's insecure, they're a good person, validate their ideas and make sure that they know like they're not crazy and they're adding value. So that could be as simple as, hey man, I think your perspective is spot on. Thanks for sharing. So next time they're in a meeting and you hear them say something good, give them a little shout out, man. Hey man, I really appreciated what you had to say in there. Those kind of things will build confidence in that person, will get them past that insecurity slowly but surely. And that goes hand in hand with recognizing their value, right? Recognition is such a powerful tool. And when we get recognized, we become more confident. We get out of our heads. We get past overthinking. We get past our insecurity. So find ways to recognize their value. Could be something as simple as, hey man, that was a super cool presentation you gave yesterday. Everybody on the call really enjoyed it. A little comment like that takes you 10 seconds can mean the world to someone who's going through insecurity. Trust me, I've been there. Next one is, I think it can be really helpful if you are close enough with the person to label or identify their insecurity in the moment. And you can't just do this with anyone, but for someone you're close with, I think it's totally appropriate to say something along the lines of, hey buddy, I think you may be overthinking that situation a little bit. I think you were totally justified in speaking up in the meeting like you did. So you're just validating that, hey man, you may be overthinking it. You may be feeling a little insecure, but it's okay, man. You're doing the right thing. I think the next thing that you can do if you're trying to help somebody out who's insecure is give them some feedback, but do it in a way that's really gentle. So insecure people may not have really sure footing. And instead of just saying, hey man, that sucked, you could say something along the lines of, hey buddy, do you mind if I share some feedback with you on that last call? Very gentle. You're getting permission before you give the feedback. Those kind of things can go really, really well for someone who is dealing with insecurity. So I think it's important to help people, like I said, if possible. But there are going to be some people that you work with who you can't help. So you may find yourself working with someone who is insecure, but it's a person that you don't want to be around. Maybe you've tried to help them with one of those things or a couple of those things, but you have figured out that this person wants to do harm for others. They're in it for themselves. They can't be helped. And at the end of the day, you can only help people that want to be helped. So in my opinion, I think in that situation, you need to limit your time with that person. So here are some ways that you can do that and you can protect yourself. So don't overshare. Don't give more information to that person, more ammo to that person than you need to. Limit the contact with them, right? Do you have to go to lunch with them? Do you have to be on every project they're on? Can you avoid working with them when possible and create distance? I'm not saying disown that person. I'm not saying be an asshole to that person, but I'm saying limit your time with that person because their negative energy, their insecurity is going to rub off on you. It's going to cause more harm than good. And at the end of the day, they're on their own journey. They're going to have to figure that out themselves. We can't help everyone, right? We can only help people that want to be helped. So again, I think a couple of ways to work with insecure people: spot them early, try to help them if possible, and avoid them if needed. So I want to transition a little bit and talk about insecurity in leaders. So have you ever found yourself working for a leader that's insecure? Maybe, I don't know. If you have been in this situation, then this segment is for you. Insecure leaders may be some of the most dangerous folks to work for. While they're less openly dangerous than, say, like an aggressive leader, their insecurity can be subtle and it can create real problems out of nowhere. So I want to give you a couple of things that you can watch out for. I want to help you to not get burned. And then I want to show you a couple of ways that you can help your leader. So an insecure leader, I want to give you what to watch out for to begin with. So number one is they're going to diminish your value. An insecure boss doesn't want you to make them feel small. When they feel small and they think you're too much of a rock star, they will find subtle ways to take your value for granted. They're going to make your contributions seem smaller than they really are. And overall, they're going to make you feel less than. So they're going to find ways to subtly diminish your value because again, when you're too valuable, that makes them feel insecure. Another one that goes right along with that is you're going to find those insecure leaders are very stingy with their recognition. So they're going to give you no recognition or very little. And there's going to be times in your career, right, where you're adding value. You know you're putting up real results, but for some reason, your boss doesn't say anything. And at first you might just ignore it and kind of assume they just got too busy. But even when your value is brought to their attention, they're going to refuse to give you kudos. This is a red flag. If your boss is secure and confident, they would know that any win you get is a win for them. So the best bosses realize it's not a zero-sum game. If my employee is valuable, that doesn't mean I'm not valuable. If my employee gets a win, that doesn't mean I don't get a win. In fact, they're the same. So another one is stealing credit for your work. An insecure boss doesn't want you to get credit because it makes them feel insecure. It wasn't their idea. They didn't do the work, right? And remember, in their eyes, you're competing with them, which is insane to think, but that's how they rationalize these things. So the easiest way for them to get a win is to steal it from you. And, I got to tell you, unfortunately, I've experienced this and, maybe I'll even share more about it in another episode, but it doesn't feel good when someone steals credit for your work. And if you notice that your boss is not giving you much recognition, diminishing your value, stealing your work, that could be a really clear sign that they're dealing with some insecurity. So let's say you've identified that your boss is insecure. Here's what I would do to not get burned, because I have gotten burned by doing this and it has really set me back in my career. But here is simply put what you can do to not get burned. Don't outshine the master. So I know that sounds like a weird phrasing, but I made this mistake a few times in my career and it hurt me, as I mentioned. And one of my favorite authors, Robert Greene, has a book called The 48 Laws of Power. And it's a guide for understanding and using power dynamics in life. And the very first law he discusses is called don't outshine the master. And there's a reason that it's the most important law, because many leaders are insecure. They have fragile egos, and when their employees outshine them, it causes havoc. So find a way to add value, make your contributions known while not undermining your leader's value. So that means, obviously, you're probably not going to want to brag and you're not going to want to seem like you don't need them, but you want to make sure that it's clear that you need them. And I'll give you some other things that you can do to make sure that it is clear that you still need them. But if you're a leader, remember that you're never competing with your employees. Any win they get is a win for you. It's not a zero-sum game. So don't outshine the master. Don't make it clear that you don't need them. You gotta keep them close and make it known that you still need them. So a couple of different ways you can help them. So number one is give them positive feedback. An easy way to help your boss feel more secure is to give them some feedback when they do good stuff. And the more recognition they get, the less insecure they'll feel. Even if you are the worst manager of all time, there is probably something that you're doing that your team could recognize. So, it could be as simple as, do they take good notes during meetings? Are they good at remembering birthdays and anniversaries? I don't care. Find something small to recognize. That's going to help them feel good about themselves and take the attention off of you and hopefully limit the harm that they do to you. Next one would be, don't brag. If you're working for an insecure leader, don't be a bragger. That will hurt you so much. You are just putting a target on your back. Let your accomplishments speak for themselves, or better yet, let the people around you speak about your accomplishments. The last thing you can do to help someone who's dealing with insecurity is most leaders have fragile egos. So you got to stroke that ego. And they don't feel like they have sure footing. So show them that they're needed, valued whenever you can. Find ways to involve them, get their advice, get their feedback, and show them that they are valued for something. If you are showing the leader that you work for that you don't need them, that you're better than them, that they can't help you in any way, that's going to make them feel really insecure. So strategically stroke that ego. I don't mean suck up to them or placate them all the time, but find ways to involve them, to show them, hey, there is something you can add to my career. There's something that you can add to this team. Even if it's something small, find something to share with them. Okay, I want to transition a little bit and talk about feeling insecure yourself. So let's say you are the person who is insecure at work. You're feeling insecure. And I'll start by sharing, every single week of my life, there has been something I have felt insecure about. And that doesn't mean we have to let it hold us back, right? Insecurity is just like any other feeling. It's temporary and it can be managed. And here are 4 things that you can do to get past insecurity. You're never going to not feel insecure all the way, but here are 4 things that I have done that have really, really helped me with my insecurity, right? There have been times where I have let my introversion make me feel insecure, or my social anxiety. And these are the things that have worked to get past that. So the first thing that I think has really helped me is communicating with confidence. And I'm a big believer that confidence comes from doing stuff and communicating in a confident manner. So a couple of easy ways that you can start sounding more confident today. And I'm going to give you an example for emails, so written communication, for speaking, and for like meetings and body language. So for email, a simple way that I started to sound more confident in email is this. When you're starting an email, don't ever start it with, I just wanted. I want you to start out with, I am reaching out because. Be direct. So that direct communication is going to show confidence. So it's not, I just wanted, I'm reaching out because is what you want to say. When you're speaking, you want to eliminate words like I think, maybe, probably. You want to be more confident. So an easy way to do that, believe it or not, is to say the words, I am confident XYZ will work. So instead of I think XYZ might work, it's I'm confident XYZ will work. And I'm telling you, using this trick of saying the word I am confident and then followed by whatever you're confident about has actually landed me new clients for my business. And I've had people call this out specifically. Hey, Austin, I really appreciate your confident communication style. And it's funny, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm definitely not that way all the time, and I'm making an effort. And so it feels really good when people respond to that. So that's for emails, that's for speaking. The last one would be like if you're in meetings or body language. Some things that you can do is, obviously, if you're in a meeting and you're not having your camera on, or your arms are crossed, or you're just constantly reading your notes as opposed to like looking at the people around you, that's going to show you that you don't have as much confidence. So find ways to stand up straight, to not cross your arms, to look out at the people you're talking to open up and use, body language that shows confidence, open hands when you're speaking, etc. Those are some easy ways to communicate with confidence. And it's funny, the more you communicate with confidence, the more confident you're going to feel. So I want to move on to the next one, which is take risks, get feedback, and watch your confidence grow. So confidence comes from taking risks. So, send that email you feel like you want to. Take on that big project, even though it's a stretch. Apply for that job, even though you maybe don't fit all the job requirements. The more little risks you can take, the more your confidence grows. And without taking risks, your confidence stays the same. So by taking a risk and then having it turn out good or bad, you are proving to yourself and others that you can do hard shit. And that's going to build confidence. So, I think about like when I was starting this podcast, I was very nervous to launch this thing, right? I had never done anything like this. I had no social media presence. Nobody knew Austin except for the people that they worked with me. But I felt like I needed to do it. So releasing that first episode and then hearing my best friend saying, "Hey man, you've got something here." And then releasing it to a few more people and hearing, "Wow, Austin, I really like your perspective." That builds confidence like no other. And here we are, almost 2 years later, and we're rocking and rolling, people. And I'm feeling more and more confident about being a podcaster, if you will, than I had ever before. And it was all from taking those little risks, getting out of the comfort zone, right? I think the next one that's really, really important is labeling your insecurity when it creeps up. So every single human being on earth has felt insecure at one point or another. And the key for me is to be able to label that insecurity when it pops up versus letting it just take over. So next time you're going to feel insecure about something, I want you to label that. I want you to just take a second, be curious, and label what that is. You're not just an insecure person in general. You're just having an insecure moment, right? So don't say, "Oh, I'm just an insecure person." I used to do that. And I realized I started to kind of become what I was saying that I was. But in fact, it was just a temporary thing. Today, I'm feeling insecure about the way I look. Okay, great. I'm just feeling insecure today. That's okay. Or, I'm feeling a little insecure about that email. That doesn't mean I'm bad at writing emails. That just means today I'm overthinking it a little bit. So label that when it creeps up as opposed to just letting it take over. And that will help tremendously because you'll realize what it is. It's just a moment of a feeling, a temporary feeling that's going to come and go. Just like good feelings come and go, bad feelings come and go. The last thing you can do is ask for some support, feedback, or get a second opinion. So when you're feeling insecure, most of the time, it's not actually rooted in reality and you're just kind of suffering in silence. So I have found that asking for feedback or a second opinion can do wonders. So for an example, let's say you've been leading a project at work and you're not sure if it's going well. You could overthink this, or you could just ask somebody on the project how you're doing. So it could be like, "Hey man, how do you think the project has been going recently? I'm feeling a little insecure about it." I have literally said that line, "What do you think about this? I'm feeling insecure about it." And I'm telling you this, there's power in almost labeling the insecurity and getting it out in the open. And most of the time, I'll get a response back that says, "Hey, Austin, dude, you're totally overthinking it. You nailed it, man. Don't even worry." Or sometimes I'll get the feedback that I needed and they'll say, "You know what? I do think you're right, Austin. That maybe wasn't your best." And either way, I'm learning something. Either way, I'm getting reassurance that I'm just overthinking it, or I'm getting some knowledge that I need to improve on something, right? So those are the ways that I really tackle insecurity when it comes up. I still deal with it, guys. I can't sit here and tell you that I'm a master at not feeling insecure. Every week, like I said, something pops up. But when I communicate with confidence, when I take risks, when I label my insecurity, and when I ask for support or feedback, it helps me get past it and makes it a temporary thing instead of a permanent thing. Okay, we talked about a lot today. We talked about how to spot insecure people, working for insecure leaders, how to help insecure people, what to do if you can't help somebody and you need to avoid them. What I want to do now is kind of bring it all together and share a little story with you. So I started working at this company maybe 5-6 years ago. And a few weeks after joining, I met this guy. Let's call the guy Derek. Derek was about, 5 to 10 years older than me and had been in banking for basically his whole career. And quickly we became real friendly and, we'd meet up for lunch. We would work on projects together and kind of became attached at the hip, right? And it was cool at first to have a friend at work, right? I felt a little out of place at this new company and I really welcomed the friendship. A few months later, it became clear that Derek was insecure. And, he was a nice guy and everybody liked him. And he was a social butterfly. I mean, he was everybody's friend. But over time, he started to show those behaviors that I mentioned. And at one time, we were both up for a job. And it was obvious to me that he felt he deserved it. And he didn't like the fact that I was getting looked at for the role. A few weeks later, I got the job and he did not take it well. He was constantly competing with me. Even after I had already got the job, it almost seemed like every time we chatted, he wanted to compare us two. And it got really awkward and kind of annoying. And at the end of the day, I liked the guy. I still think he's a nice guy. I enjoyed his company. He was fun, lighthearted, but I got annoyed of his tendencies. It's kind of exhausting to be around someone that's always competing with you. You can't just let your guard down. And I remember one day we were at his office and he told me that none of my peers liked me. Just randomly, he brought that up. And, maybe he was trying to help, right? But my suspicion is that he wanted to remind me that he was better than me because, again, he was the social butterfly. Everybody liked him. I even found out, a few months later that he was talking crap about me behind my back, which obviously didn't feel good to hear. Who knows if that's true, but that's what I heard. And, I tried my best for that year that we were close to build him up, give him recognition, speak highly of him, try to get him a seat at the table. But I started to realize the guy was very insecure. So ultimately, I came to the decision that I just needed to distance myself from him. We don't work together anymore. I'm not sure how things played out for him. I wish him nothing but success. I hope that, he gets past that. And I hope he starts to become a little bit more confident in his value because he did have value. There are things that he did that others couldn't do. But at the end of the day, there's no need to compete with the people around you. Put others down or make yourself seem better than you are. Don't talk about it, just be about it is kind of my motto. So I wanted to share that story with you and know that, you can figure out how to work with insecure people. And whether that means helping them at first or eventually deciding, hey, they can't be helped, they need to figure it out on their own. Either way is okay. But what I want to do now is give you a quick challenge to wrap things up. So this week, I want you to look at the people around you at work. Is there someone insecure that you can help? Someone that's struggling with insecurity? I want you to try to help them, give them some recognition, validate their perspective, build them up. And then I want you to also ask yourself, is there someone insecure you need to create distance from? Is there someone that's insecure that's bringing you down? If you can't help them, it's time to separate yourself. It's only going to help you in your career, and it's probably going to help them in the long run. And then lastly, if you're an insecure leader who's hurting your team, I want you to take stock of that and make some decisions. I want you to start to realize that you don't need to compete with your team. And I want you to remember that any win your team gets is a win for you. Thank you so much for listening. Make it a great day. This has been the Introvert Leader Podcast. Subscribe for new episodes every other Wednesday.